Sijilmasa was a medieval Moroccan city and trade entrepôt at the northern edge of the Sahara Desert in Morocco. The ruins of the town lie for 5 miles along the River Ziz in the Tafilalt oasis near the town of Rissani. The town's history was marked by several successive invasions by Berber dynasties, up until the 14th century, as the northern terminus for the western trans-Sahara trade route. It was one of the most important trade centers in the Maghreb during the Middle Ages. History. According to al-Bakri's Book of Routes and Places, Tafilalt Kharijites first settled the town in the wake of the Berber revolts against the Umayyads. Al-Bakri recounts that others joined these early settlers there, until they numbered around 4,000, at which point they laid the groundwork for the city. They elected a leader, Isa bin Mazid al-Aswad, to handle their affairs during the first few years after the town's establishment. However, after ruling for 14 years, he was blamed by his companions of corruption and executed. Abu al-Kashim Samgu bin Wasil al-Miknazi, chief of a branch of the Minasa tribe, became the leader of the town. This Abu al-Kashim and his descendants are known as the Maghreb dynasty. The Arab geographer Ibn Hawqal visited Spain and the Maghreb between 947 and 951 AD. According to the account in his Kitab Surat al-Ad completed in around 988 AD, Sijilmasa grew in economic power due to shifting trade routes. At one time, trade between Egypt and the Ghana Empire took a direct route across the desert, but because of the harsh conditions, this route was abandoned. Instead, caravans passed through the Maghreb to Sijilmasa and then headed south across the Sahara. Sijilmasa's economic wealth is evidenced by Ibn Hawqal's story about a bill issued to a trader in Oasis for 42,000 dinars from another merchant based out of Sijilmasa. Ibn Hawqal explains that he has never heard of such a large sum of money in all of his travels. On account of its wealth, the city was able to assert its independence under the Maghreb dynasty, freeing itself from the Abbasid Caliphate as early as 771. Shifting alliances with the Caliphate of Córdoba and the Fatimids of Africa destabilized the city during the 10th century, beginning with Ubayd Allah al-Mahdi Billah's visit to the city, the man who was later known as the founder of the Fatimid dynasty. Ubayd Allah, accompanied by his son al-Kashim, arrived in the Maghreb in 905. Ubayd Allah and his son made the way to Sijilmasa, fleeing persecution by the Abbasids, who found their Ismaili Shiite beliefs not only unorthodox, but also threatening to the status quo of the Caliphate. According to legend, Ubayd Allah and his son were fulfilling a prophecy that the Mahdi would come from Mesopotamia to Sijilmasa. They hid among the population of Sijilmasa for 4 years under the countenance of the Mitra rulers, specifically one Prince Yasser. Al-Kashim, the son of the alleged Mahdi, had miraculous powers and caused a spring to gush forth outside of the city. A Jewish resident of the city witnessed this, and spread the word throughout Sijilmasa that Ubayd Allah was going to attempt to take over the city. At or around the same time, Prince Yasser, the Maghreb ruler, received a letter from the Abbasids in Baghdad, warning him to close his frontiers and be wary of Ubayd Allah. Yasser was forced to imprison the men he had previously patronized. Ubayd Allah's servant escaped to Kairouan, which at the time was a stronghold for Ismailis. The leader of the Ismailis in Africa was Abu Abdullah. He quickly mustered an army to rescue his compatriot. On his way to Sijilmasa, he subdued to hurt the nearby Abadi Kharijite stronghold under the Rustamid dynasty. The army arrived in the Tafilalt in the latter half of 909, and laid siege to the city. After Yasser was killed in that year or the next, the Mitra dynasty began a long process of fragmentation that eventually resulted in a hostile takeover by the Maghreb Berbers, former clients of the Cordoban Caliphate. under the Maghreb, who later declared independence from the Cordoban Caliphate. The city retained its role as a trade center. It also became a center for Maghreban government and its campaign against other tribes in Morocco proper. After 60 years of Maghreb rule, the elders of Sijilmasa appealed to the Sahara Berber Confederation, which was just beginning its transformation into the Almoravid movement. According to al-Bakri, in 1055, Abdullah ibn Yassin, the spiritual leader of the Almoravid movement, responded by bringing his new army to Sijilmasa and killed the leader of the Maghreb, Masud ibn Winudam al-Maghrawi. The Almoravid imposed an extremely strict interpretation of Islam, smashing music instruments and closing down wine shops throughout the city. While the city would rebel against the Almoravid garrison on more than one occasion, Sijilmasa became the Almoravids' first conquest. It remained under the control until 1146, when the Almohad dynasty took control of the city. During the Almoravids' rule, the city shared in the centralized governing structure of the Almoravid Empire. When the Almohad took the city in the mid-12th century, they also took advantage of the wealth of trade going through Sijilmasa. However, the strict philosophy imposed by the Almoravid at the beginning of the reign of Sijilmasa was overshadowed by the extremely violent practices of the Almohad. This culminated in the massacre of many of the Jews living in Sijilmasa. Amid the fall of the Almohad dynasty to the Zenata Berber Confederation under the Marinid, Sijilmasa once again played host to the latest Berber dynasty. The Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta stayed in Sijilmasa on his journey to visit the Mali Empire in 1352 to 1353. He wrote, "I reached the city of Sijilmasa, a very beautiful city. It has abundant dates of good quality. The city of Al-Basra is like it in the abundance of dates, but those of Sijilmasa are superior." Ibn Battuta also mentions Sijilmasa when describing the Chinese town of Quanzhou. In this city, as in all cities in China, men have orchards and fields and the houses in the middle, as they are in Sijilmasa in our country. This is why the towns are so big. The next mention of Sijilmasa in the extant sources is that of Leo Africanus, who, traveling to Morocco in the early 16th century, goes to the Tafilalt oasis and finds Sijilmasa destroyed. He remarks on the most stately and high walls, which were apparently still standing. He continues to describe the city as gallantly built, writing there were many stately temples and colleges in the city, and water wheels that drew water out of the River Ziz. Leo Africanus says that since the city was destroyed, former residents had moved into outlying villages and castles. He stayed in this area for 7 months, saying that it was temperate and pleasant. According to Leo Africanus, the city was destroyed when its last prince was assassinated by the citizens of Sijilmasa, after which the populace spread across the countryside. Ibn Khaldun says in his Muqaddimah that the city fell due to a lack of resources. Lightfoot and Miller cite several facts from the findings on site. They say that oral tradition preserved by those in the Tafilalt says that the Black Sultan, a malevolent dictator, was overthrown by the populace. The city was rebuilt in the 18th century under the orders of Sultan Moli Ismail. It was conquered and destroyed by the nomadic tribes of Atata in 1818. Today, the ruins of Sijilmasa, a couple of km north of the town of Rissani, are recognized by the World Monuments Fund as an endangered site. They are preserved by the Moroccan Ministry of Culture. Bibliography. Boone, James L. Myers, J. Emlyn, Redman, Charles L. Archaeological and Historical Approaches to Complex Societies. The Islamic States of Medieval Morocco, American Anthropologist, 92, 630–646, DOI, 10.1525, AA. 1990, 92.3.02 A00050. Gibb H. A.R. Beckingham, cf. Trans, and eds. The Travels of Ibn Battuta, AD 1325–1354, London, Hakluyt Society, ISBN 9780904180374. This volume was translated by Beckingham after Gibb's death in 1971. Hirschberg, H.Z. A History of the Jews in North Africa, New York. Brill Academic. Ibn Khaldun, Al-Muqaddimah, Franz Rosenthal, Princeton, N.J., Princeton University Press. Levshon, Nehemiah Ibn Horkal, The Czech and Orderhost, Journal of African History, 9, 223–233, DO 10.1017 S002185370008847 JSD 179,561. Levshon, Nehemiah, Ancient Ghana and Mali, London, Methuen, ISBN 08419-04316. Levshon, Nehemiah, Islam in West Africa, Politics and Society to 1800, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Variorum, ISBN 08607844444. Levshon, Nehemiah, Hopkins, John F. P. eds. Corpus of Early Arabic Sources for West Africa, New York, New York, Marcus Weiner Press, ISBN 1-55876-2418. First published in 1981. Lightfoot, Dale R. Miller, James A. Sijilmasa. The Rise and Fall of a Walled Oasis in Medieval Morocco. Annals of the Association of American Geographers. 86–78 -101. DOI. 10.1111 J. 1467–8306.1996 TBO 1746 X.